Hello, thank you very much for the time today. This film is so much fun. I really love the vibe. I'm curious, as a director starting out, I felt like there was a really cool mix of, there's the horror, but it also felt like an action movie. It also felt like a drama. There was a bit of a thriller.
No humor, though.
Oh, no.
I'm not funny.
Was that intentional? Like, was there a thought process there for making it those things?
There was a thought process behind the movie. When you read a script, you always kind of look for the conflict as fuel for your movie, I think, and for characters. I had this thing, it's a story I always tell everywhere, so you'll have to sit through it, that I was in LA at a traffic light, and I'm sitting there, and I'm going like, oh, I hope Janet is okay. And then I'm thinking, I don't know a Janet. Who's Janet? And it turned out
I've actually never heard this story.
You were good. And it turned out it was a character from a script that I had read weeks ago. I could not have told you the story, the genre, but I know I cared for Janet. So since then, that has been kind of my goal. If we stripped all the genre stuff away, all the horror pieces, are the characters still captivating enough? Are they still Janets, basically?
Jackie's.
In this case, Jackie, exactly. And then the action, I think one thing about this movie is that it doesn't waste any time with the question of, is this possession or not? Right. Because if I bought a ticket for a possession movie, I don't want to sit through 45 minutes of, oh, I wonder if she's possessed. She's possessed.
And thank you for that.
So for the movie to go like, welcome to the Exorcism movie, let's go, saved so much time that we suddenly had an hour and a half to do set pieces and to do that kind of stuff and to do the action.
That's cool.
So there's more in it.
Yeah.
Well, for you, she's so cool. Did you have something you admired about her going in? Was there something that kind of inspired you about who she was?
Yeah, I think I read the script and I saw a certain amount of courage that I was like, I could use a little bit more of that in my life, and here we go.
But also Jackie created this character. We had a very good script, great screenwriter, all that, but the stuff that this woman brought to the character, you would not recognize the before and after Jackie Byers thing. We were in the hotel and we had a Zoom conference.
No, I'm gonna cry.
And we were in quarantine, and her and I had a meeting, and I thought normally you as the director, you talk the actors through the script. So I was getting ready, I had prepared, I was like, I'm gonna impress that actress from minute one. I'm going to show her how smart I am here. And then Jackie was like, all right, let me talk you through this. And then she talked me through the script for 2 hours. And I was like, I have nothing to add. Let's do what your vision of Anne, let's do exactly. And throughout the movie, there were so many moments. There are always moments when you freeze as a director. And you just go like, I don't know the answer to this. And whenever that happened in this case, I could go to Jackie and go like, we have the following problem. And she would say the famous words, let me try something. And then she would try something and solve the problem. Of course, I would do that in whispered so that the producers think I solved that problem. But really, it's Jackie Byers.
How did you picture who she was? Like, did you have a vision of, okay, she's this, but she isn't this? Or is it more of a mood?
I think she's experienced a ton of trauma in her life, but I don't think she lets that trauma define her. I think I focused more on what she wants and her drive to get what she wants, but also within that, she's experienced a life that she doesn't feel great about before becoming a nun. And I think bringing some of that life into the character is really important. It's funny because I think there's two aspects of Anne that are just so iconic, and they're visual, and it's her Doc Marten boots and the white hair. And the Doc Martens were actually this guy, and he was asking me to wear them, and I go, nuns wear sandals. It's a sign of their poverty. I'm gonna wear the Doc Marten sandals. And then he got me to go out in Sofia in my nun habit and walk around just to get an idea of what it's like to live like in a nun outfit, which I ran into Christian, and a nun and a priest were having coffee in the middle of Sofia, Bulgaria. But I got blisters all over my feet in the sandals. So I was like, you know what, Daniel, you win. I'm wearing the Docs, and I thank God that I did.
I thought you had seen the light from my creative choice and agreed that I was right creatively. I didn't know they were
my
blisters.
feet were like, Daniel's right. You need to wear the Doc Martens. Yeah, so I wore the Docs. They became like butter. But they also, once I had them on my feet in the outfit, I was like, this is a symbol of her life before she was a nun that's like coming in with her. And I loved that aspect and bringing like that to Anne.
It's tough to find someone who can do that balance of fragility and vulnerability and kick-assness at the same time.
Well, and that's what I love about the boots. To me, the boots also symbolize that she really is like the kick-ass nun. Like,
Exactly.
it's
She's going to
kinda cool.
drop kick you at anything.
I have to admit that the Doc, because in the last Exorcism, which was another exorcism movie I'd made, the girl is wearing Doc Martens.
Oh, she is.
She is. And it all goes back
didn't know that.
to an ex-girlfriend of mine who used to wear the same red Doc Martens, and I was so in love with this woman.
Oh.
And those Doc Martens always stuck with me, that I was like, there is a whole philosophy and view of the world in those shoes.
Mm-hmm.
There's only one type of person that wears those shoes, and if you now put them on a nun, that tells you everything about the nun.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
Yeah, a little punk rock.
Did you enjoy kicking ass in this movie? Because you have some really cool scenes. I mean, we won't talk about some of them, but like,
Okay.
I'm curious.
Who doesn't love to kick ass?
Right?
It's funny because I'm like, she is kick ass, but you know, her work's not done in a specific way.
Right.
That I think that she's so focused on a certain path that I don't think she thinks it's done. I don't think she gives herself the pat on the back quite yet.
Are you talking sequel?
I'm talking.
I was going to ask him about it because, yeah, it's
Come
perfectly
on,
set up.
Lionsgate.
That's got to happen because the ending was perfect for that.
I'm glad you're saying that, because my big worry with the ending was like, will people think she just died and got swallowed, without giving the ending
Of
away.
course.
But it's supposed
Yeah.
to be
She
an
could've.
ambiguous meaning. But you don't, like, if you sat through an hour and a half of her battling demons to end on, didn't quite make it, would be so depressing.
That would be a bummer.
Yeah, so I'm
And
glad you
it's
said.
okay to have horror that's a bummer sometimes, but this didn't feel like that. It was that film.
And again, glad that you're saying that, because when I started making movies, being European, the darker the ending, the better, because it
Yeah,
feels
you're German. Your
yeah,
fairy
for
tales
sure.
are really dark.
Yeah.
So they have to, it's more intellectual. It's like Shakespeare. Shakespeare
Right.
doesn't end on a Hamlet, everybody dies, and that's how you know you've made a good movie.
Right.
So that's where I started, right? And then with this one especially, the goal was kind of, let's make Anne a character where I could not stomach seeing her die.
Right.
Where I, against every fiber in my body, have a happy kind of ending because I care about that character so
Yeah,
much.
for sure. Well, and the sense of humor, I mean, she does have this great sense of humor and playing all that. Is that just part of you? Did you have to come up with what her sense of humor was?
I think that it was. No, I think that there's in the script it's hinted at, but it definitely, I think, with any comedy, you just have to bring your own
Right.
little, I don't know, timing, chutzpah.
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 Yeah.
Is that how you say it?
Well, that's how I say it.
It's it, okay.
It's funny because the moments are super tiny that inform that this woman has humor.
Right.
And it's great that it only takes those few moments for an audience to go, like, oh, I like her because she has a sense of humor. But those are completely Jackie. Those small moments are things she just did on set. Some of them I didn't even see until the editing room that you had done them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's really more of a vibe.
Right.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
need an actress of a certain class to get you that, to have it so subtle that you experience this character like you would experience people in real life, where you get a vibe about someone even though you can't even put your finger
As
on what
red
it's
as I feel right now.
Well, well due praise. The other praise here that I have to give is your young star.
Posy.
Posey is amazing. What was it like to work with her for both of you?
She's terrible. No talent at all. I taught her everything. It was so hard finding that part. So hard. And we went out everywhere. We had 2 casting agents, one in the UK, one in the US. And they both at some point threw their hands up and were like, this girl doesn't exist. And then one of them was like, I will now go into schools, which you always know that casting directors are desperate if they start going into bars and schools. So I was like, oh, we're in
They
trouble.
found me at a bar.
Yeah, exactly. Under the bar. And then her drama teacher suggested Posey, and Posey had
No. The drama teacher suggested her sister, who happened to be at camp, and Posey auditioned because her sister was away.
I have no idea.
That's amazing.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Her
I
sister's
knew that
kicking
story.
herself right now.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
now I wanna
But
meet the
she's so
sister.
scary. Like, I mean, that's one of the key things. She's so sweet, but then when it's time to be scary, she's amazing.
Andrew, I love you so much because you say all the right things. Because with
Yeah.
Posey, we had maybe 10 girls that we had in the closer circle, and there was one girl who could give you the most unforgettable, most terrifying look you've ever seen in your life, and she was so terrifying. But it was very one-dimensional. She could do that one look and not much. And Posey has all the character actress depth. I don't know where she pulls it from, but she is going to be huge, you know.
Yeah.
But she's not necessarily inherently scary.
No, she's
you know?
like gentle and like delicate.
Yeah, and then for her to go and generate that scariness, I think is what now is really great to watch. I'm so glad
Yeah.
that we.
And it
that we
happens on a dime.
chose- Yeah.
Like she could just be innocent little Posey, and then there's just like a switch that she can do. And I have no idea. She was 9 when we shot
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I know.
My daughter's 9. She could not do this. Yeah.
And you talk to a 9-year-old about these concepts of whatever, and then you listen to yourself and you go like, would I understand a word of what I'm just
Yeah.
saying if
Right.
I were 9? And you're not sure with Posey if she does. She just looks at you and goes like, okay. But you could have talked in Norwegian. She would have said, okay, no problem.
Yeah.
And then she does it.
I
It was-
know.
Somehow she must have processed.
Yeah.
She's so smart. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's great.
We became close friends.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing I'm curious about is, this tackles actual issues. Like, horror doesn't always go for topics. Science fiction has, and other ones do often, but horror doesn't always have a political message, or this isn't necessarily political, but like a message. I love how it tackles, the effects of trauma, the whole the place of women in the world, and how the church has obviously looked down on women for so long. How important was that for you both to present that well?
I think it's what drew me to the film to begin
Yeah.
with. I think horror is a very fun genre, but as an actor, it's like it's okay, you can be a scream queen. I will have fun doing that. But, the real meat and potatoes is in like the psychological aspects of a human being. And guilt and shame, I think, are something every human being suffers with. And I think self-forgiveness is such a powerful lesson for anyone to learn.
And the feminism of it all, I think, is the whole justification for the movie to exist. Because you have to, exorcism in itself is a pretty narrow genre because you owe the audience certain set pieces. That's what they came for. But they're also getting ready to shout at the end of it, oh, this was just another exorcist ripoff.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, you have to give them all the spinning heads and the levitation and the contortion. And on the other hand, you have to give them something fresh where they have seen 20 other exorcism movies and they go like, oh, this was different. So we got so much mileage out of this being a female protagonist who suddenly has obstacles that a priest would never have. She has to fight the entire patriarchy of the church before even allowed to fight the demon.
Right.
That's quite the job application process for her, which you wouldn't have had with a male character. So it's huge. Yeah. It's what sets this movie apart, but also what would have been a big trap to fall into, relying on just that.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's something we were very aware of, I think.
And I love that she doesn't have to prove herself necessarily to the audience, really, to be expected to carry this through. You can just tell that she can do these things. I mean, I felt like that was an early thing that, stood out.
Well, I'm glad. That's great.
But there's so many films, that fall in that trap of, oh, she's got to prove herself to be worthy to do this thing. But we never have to go through that, which is a nice
I think there's a
step.
self-knowing, there's a certain calling that she feels and has about herself. And it's one of those, like, confidence. You can tell someone to be more confident, but you can't just be more confident.
Right.
And someone's confidence, you trust in that. And that even happens in casting process. If you don't believe you can do it, no one else will.
Right.
And the fact that she believes from the get-go, the audience jumps on board.
So that Jackie happens to exude an intelligence that you can just, I think, tell. It's not even something that the character does or that the screen tells her to
Right.
do. It's just a presence that someone has where you go like, And also the balance that we were striving for is hopefully what works, that she is terrified. She needs to be terrified, otherwise the audience is not going to be terrified.
Right.
But she has the courage and the conviction and the determination and the obsession to do it anyway.
That was a really hard aspect, actually, when approaching Anne in these terrifying situations, because you wanted her to be strong, but he kept saying, he's like, the audience is only going to be as scared as you are.
Right.
However, she's still trying to get through to somebody. So there has to be this like layering of like, I'm absolutely terrified, however, I'm going to live through this because you're more important. And playing that, it's like, hope, like, that's what we're, I guess, trying to push through.
That's nicely said, because you are more important.
Yeah.
Because what drew me to the character is this fact that she needs her mother is already dead, and yet she is still chasing her mother's love so much that she can't exist in a world where her mother was abusive. She needs to have been possessed. Rather, the existence of demons and the devil face all that than her mother, having abused her. And that is basically the motor that generates her. So you see that strength from moment one, and that's how the movie opens now.
Which I think is such a cool line in the film when Colin Salmon and she goes, we all have a personal relationship with God, and he's like, it's not with God.
Yes.
Like, that is like the weight of, like, he's just a master.
He's amazing.
And he's so good.
Well, the last thing I'm going to ask is, if hopefully you do get to come back to this role, what's something you want to do with her in the future? What was something you didn't get to do
someone asked
here?
me this already, and I was like, I'm not a writer.
No, but we heard you infuse so much with the character. We want to know.
Yeah,
what you'll do
well,
with
it's
it.
so funny because when I initially answered this question, the ending was different, and in an edit, movies change from what they
of
were
course.
originally. Why not make her the Pope?
That's genius. It might take more than one sequel together.
Yeah.
Hey.
Let's make fun.
That's a house of cards, exactly. Third. That's genius.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.